Which brings us to our next topic, which has a lot to do with how we would start and stop these data collector sets and what conditions we would go through in order to determine when we need to break apart the files and folders that contain the data we're collecting. We've already seen most of these in creating it originally. We've also seen just where we're going to store this data collector set here in what directory or subdirectory. Notice that when we create these different log files, we'll be creating multiple different log files that will increment as the log file fills up. So you'll see here that we have a serial number of 1 that will give us a log file name that looks essentially like this: file 1, the date, and then log number 1. The main reason for this incrementing counter is to prevent ourselves from creating a log file that is just simply too large to really parse for any useful information. And so having an incrementing counter allows us to set aside log files and divide them up perhaps by day or by week, or whatever period of time makes most sense. Now, I know that on the exam, the particular task on that exam asks us to know how to schedule performance monitoring. But I think it's important not only to recognize that, well, here's the Schedule tab, and this is the location where you would go about configuring a schedule, but it's just as important also to know when you should stop collecting data as well. First and foremost here, when we set a schedule, we just have to set a beginning date and then also an expiration date for the data that we're looking to collect. Also, when we would launch that data collector set. Once you set that, and let me just configure one here, it is the stop condition which contains the more confusing characteristics, as well as what is arguably the most important when you want to go about consolidating that data into manageable chunks. So the first item up here is the top. This is the overall duration for the set itself. You can think of this as the entire total duration that you want to collect data for. That could be a week, that could be a month, that could be a year, that could be for the rest of time. This overall duration is the absolute stop period for all the data collection that you're going to do using this data collector set. Now it's down here under limits where you can go about dividing that data then into manageable chunks, and it happens when you click the box right here titled Restart the Data Collector Set at Limits. When you do that, you then can determine whether or not you want to create a new log file after a certain number of seconds or minutes or hours, or after that log file hits a certain maximum size. So this gives you that ability, again, to kind of chunk up the data in a way that makes most sense, either keeping it to a manageable size or limiting it by a particular unit of time. Configuring any of these stop conditions here takes us then to our final tab, which is the Task tab here, which allows us to run a scheduled task anytime a data collector set stops. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what in the world would I use this for? The main use for this Task tab here is to give you the abilities to create, for example, a PowerShell script that would just simply email you or message you in some way to let you know that the set has actually stopped and the data is ready for review. You can see evidence of this in the fact that the arguments are separated here from the user text. So again, whether it's an email or some other messaging tool that lets you know that your data collector set is now stopped and is ready to be looked at.